My favorite playthroughs in Crusader Kings 3 have always been the ones where I start from the bottom and make my way up. The addition of landless gameplay as part of the latest DLC opens up a ton of new possibilities to do precisely this, so I curated a list of 5 characters that start off landless but historically end up acquiring a whole realm. Kizilbuga Kai, the Falcons of Kai. Starting off in 1178 in the Central Asian county of Merv, Kizilbuga heads up a small camp with a handful of followers called the Falcons of Kai. This landless adventurer is of the Kai dynasty, which is traditionally considered as the ancestral clan of the Ottoman dynasty. According to Ottoman tradition, Kizilbuga was the great-great-grandfather of Osman Gazi, the eponymous founder of both the Ottoman state and dynasty in the early 14th century. Although the history of the Kai clan is not entirely clear to modern historians, Ottoman tradition postulates that the Kais, led by Kizilbuga's grandson Ertugrul, eventually migrated out of Central Asia and into Anatolia, where they ended up serving the Sultanate of Rum. As a reward for this service, they were eventually given lands in the northwestern part of the Sultanate, near the border with the Byzantine Empire, which is where Osman took over and went on to form one of the most powerful empires the world had ever seen. Following in the footsteps of history and undertaking the westward migration will not be easy, as Kizilbuga is pretty old and lacks men-at-arms. You can, however, still take advantage of the fragmented Middle East in this start date by siding with various local rulers and assisting them in their wars. Being of the Oghuz culture, you have access to horse archers, which are always useful in the open terrain types. Theodora Sen, the Men from the Mountains. In the Byzantine theme of Moesia, a fairly large camp led by Theodor Asen can be found in 1178. Although his family's origins are not entirely clear, Theodor left a lasting legacy by becoming the first emperor of a restored Bulgarian empire. He took the name Peter in the process, and he is known historically as Theodor Peter or Peter II of Bulgaria. You will notice that I've added an E to his CK3 name, as I believe Paradox have made a small mistake with this. I could not find any legit sources that actually refer to him as Todor. This character is more than just a name though, as he starts off with just over 10,000 special event troops composed of a decent mix of men-at-arms, levies, and even siege equipment. At the start of the game, this actually puts you ahead of the Emperor in terms of numbers and offers you an obvious path to follow in the footsteps of the historical character. Although historians are not in agreement whether the 3 Asen brothers were originally Bulgarians, Vlachs, or even Cumans, it is clear that they chose to identify as Bulgarians. This put them at the head of a rebellion against the Byzantines and the very high taxes that they were levying on the local populace during this time. Allegedly, the catalyst that pushed the brothers onto this path was a humiliating denial by the emperor to grant them an estate. The rebellion broke out in 1185, and although Peter faced some initial setbacks, he managed to secure his realm's independence by 1188 with some help from the Cumans, and managed to repel further attempts by the Byzantines to take back Bulgaria. Both him and his younger brother Ivan had been murdered by 1197, leaving the youngest brother Kauyan as the sole heir. He became in turn one of Bulgaria's most successful rulers, calling himself Roman Slayer and taking big chunks of land from the Byzantines and then the Latin Empire. Master Hrolfr, the Walkers from the North. Better known as Rollo, this adventurer's camp is located in Skene in the 867 start. As with many of the characters in this list, the historical record is patchy when it comes to Rollo's early life. What is certain was that he was a Viking chieftain who took part in a fair amount of raiding in northern France, especially along the Seine River, and is said to have been among the leaders of the failed 885 siege of Paris. A few decades later, following another defeat at Chartres in 911, Rollo concluded a deal with the King of Francia, who gave him lands in an area that is today known as Normandy. This region was indeed named after the Northmen that followed Rollo, who intermixed with the local Frankish population and gave rise to a distinct culture that was later called Norman. In exchange for the land granted to him, Rollo had to convert to Christianity and swear to protect the shores and rivers from future Viking incursions, a promise which he mostly kept. Rollo starts off with no men-at-arms in 867, but compensates for this with excellent martial and prowess stats. Being only 20 years old, you have plenty of time to match Rollo's historical accomplishments. Although he passed away around 930, his offspring consolidated their power and became known as the House of Normandy. One of the most famous members of this house is William the Conqueror, who successfully invaded England in 1066 and became its king. Many other descendants of the original Norse settlers went on to become adventurers in their own right, taking land as far as Sicily and the Near East. Süleyman Seljuk, sons of Kutalmish. On the eastern edge of the Byzantine Empire in the 1066 start, you can find Süleyman Seljuk's camp. Known historically as Süleyman ibn Kutalmish, this character was the founder of the Sultanate of Rum, a powerful Turkish state that saw its heyday in the 12th and 13th centuries. Süleyman was the son of Kutalmish, himself a cousin of the Seljuk Sultan Alp Arslan, against whom he had struggled unsuccessfully. Following Kutalmish's death in 1064, Süleyman fled with his 3 brothers into the Taurus Mountains, seeking refuge with other Turkoman tribes that had moved beyond the borders of the then Seljuk realm. This is where we find ourselves in the game, with our 3 brothers as followers in the camp, along with 600 men-at-arms. We are immediately presented with a decision to either challenge Alp Arslan for the Seljuk throne, which gives us a claim on the empire title, or we can follow the historical route of founding a separate realm. The latter gives us another 600 men-at-arms, along with an extra level of fame. The Seljuk Sultan sent a number of punitive expeditions against the 4 brothers, 2 of which perished. In the decades after, Süleyman consolidated his power base with the local Turkoman tribes. Taking advantage of a Byzantine civil war, he ended up capturing a large area of central Anatolia, including the city of Nicaea in 1075. Süleyman's conquests were recognized by Arslan's successor, Malik Shah, and Süleyman appears to have become his vassal. These events marked the beginning of the Sultanate of Rum. Although Süleyman died in battle whilst trying to expand his realm into Syria in 1086, his descendants became famous as the main enemies of the first 3 crusades. Their realm ultimately outlasted the Great Seljuk Empire, which collapsed in the late 12th century, whereas the Sultanate of Rum survived up to the 14th century. Hasan Sabah, the Summoners of the Faith. In the 1066 start, the 16-year-old Hasan Sabah is located in the Seljuk capital of Rai. This character is famous for being the founder of the Hashashins, also known as the Order of the Assassins, which was part of an independent state centered around the Ismaili branch of Shia Islam. Born in the nearby city of Qom, Hasan found himself living in the city of Rai at a young age, and it is here that he developed a scholarly and theologic interest that led him to adopting the Ismaili faith at the age of 17. This is reflected accurately at the start of the game, where your religion is Imami, but you'll almost immediately get an event that allows you to convert to Ismailism. Hasan then went on to travel around the Islamic world of the time, ending up in Cairo in 1076 to pursue his religious studies, as during this time Fatimid Egypt was one of the centers of the Ismaili faith. After spending about 3 years in Egypt, Hasan returned to Persia, where he engaged in converting local populations. In 1090, he managed to gain control of the formidable castle of Alamut with the help of converts from its garrison. This holding became the capital of a territorially scattered state that consisted of a network of fortresses throughout Persia and Syria that were considered a threat by the surrounding regional powers of the Seljuks, Abbasids, and Fatimids. It is precisely this difficult situation that led the Ismailis to adopt the covert tactics they are famed for today. Since they could never face their enemy's army straight on, they had to rely on taking out their leadership and striking fear through their ranks. Hasan passed away in 1124, but the state that he founded kept going for about 200 years until its ultimate demise at the hands of the Mongols. I hope you found this list of CK3 starts useful. Don't forget to take a look at my other starts videos in the linked playlist. If you like my content, make sure to subscribe for more historical gaming ideas.